Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining me for another review, everybody. And if this is your first time here, hey, check out how we do the reviews here. See if you like what you hear. Maybe you learn something. Maybe we're talking about your favorite bottle. Who knows? But we keep doing these reviews every single week and just having fun with this hobby. So today's review, we have the Old Granddad 114. Man, 114 proof. Old Granddad Jim Beam product. $32 in Ohio. Can't beat that for something cast strength. So we're going to go through this one. We're going to break it down. And you can see there's a smile on my face. So I'm excited to drink this thing. Thanks for joining, everybody. Let's kick off the show. All right. And for today's whiskey review, hey, we got a Cheech Glen here, a Whiskey Encore. Cheers, Cheech. So with this, as I was saying off the top, got Old Granddad, Jim Beam. This is $32 in Ohio. I mean, you really can't beat that price. Personally, I find myself coming to this more often than I do Booker's. Most likely because one cost 32 and the other cost 100, and I'm not entirely sure they're that far apart sometimes. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I just find myself drinking this more. I also particularly love this in some eggnog at the Christmas season. Yes, I have a sweet spot for eggnog. With this one, and you can see I am definitely due for another. Hear this one talked about all the time as being one of the better, lower priced bourbons. So wanted to get this one into our scoring system so that we have it in there as a benchmark. And I will say before we get into it, one other reason that this pour now is just deep in my bones. Durrell once gave me a 1989 Grandad 114 sample. Man, that thing was like life affirming. That it was that good. Like now I just can't get it out of my head. And sometimes I go and I look and see if I can get one, and then I slap my wrist and say no, Jeff. But let's break down the modern day version of it and see where it is. Cheers, everybody. So on the nose, pretty typical Jim Beam profile. The thing that does stick out to me a little bit is there's an ethanol hit to this one. It comes in hot. And it's pretty rare for me to say something coming in hot. I put my schnoz into that 150 proof Canadian whiskey behind me. I don't think that thing's hot. So for me to say something's hot, it's usually got to be pretty ethanol forward. So if you are sensitive to those type of notes, just proceed with caution on how deep you put your nose in. I do not recommend that you put your nose as deep as I do. Flavor wise, just getting into caramel, a little powdered sugar. I would say the fruit on it's apple. I debate whether calling it pear. It's even a spiced pear on that. You're then getting into the nuttiness. So you got the peanuts, the peanut shells that you'll typically get on a Jim Beam. There's then cinnamon and maybe just generically just say baking spices on the nose. So for a nose on a $32 product, it adds some complexity there, but does come in a little hot. So it does lose on the flavor a little bit. You don't want to put your nose in this one too much. All right. Well, let's get into the taste. Cheers, everybody. So, starting things off with the front of the palate, flavor wise, it's okay. Just some cinnamon, brown sugar, cinnamon kind of dominates it for the most part. So up front, it's just okay. Now, the mouthfeel, on the other hand, it's got a really good mouthfeel for it. That proof brings that mouthfeel, and it feels really oily and viscous. Even starts hitting me on the side of the tongues. I really appreciate that part of it. Mid palate, we're getting into peanuts again. I want to say a peanut butter, not necessarily a creamy peanut butter, maybe a crunchy peanut butter. I go back to the powdered sugar and the apple. On this one, there's even a hint of cherry, which is very nice. And then you're just getting back into the baking spices, the cinnamon, brown sugar. Gosh, I think that's about it. There's a butteriness there too, which I really appreciate. Almost like gosh, a buttered biscuit, even. I guess I would describe it that way, like a homemade biscuit that you just really melt that butter all on top of it, and it just smells like that home cooking. Mm, man, don't know if you could hear that. I was getting a phone call there. No phone calls. I'm doing a review. So, for the finish on this one, flavor wise, it mostly matches what I was talking about on mid palate. I mean, you're just talking about the peanut butter again, maybe crunchy peanut butter, the cinnamon, the brown sugar, the baking spices, adding some vanilla. The thing that the finish brings that, and it's on the tail end of the finish. So it's like I'm now getting to it, about 15, 20 seconds in, but it's got some good chocolate, like a little bit of chocolate on there. The only other thing that I think to mention here is it does give you a nice Kentucky hug. I think because it is so oily, it just has this little slow track going down, and you kind of really just get to experience that for a little bit. All right, let's do one more sip, see if I find anything else. On that sip, it definitely leaned apple more than pear. I say that, and then the finish just turned a little sour, and now I'm leaning pear again. So it bounces between those two. But yeah, I think that's it. Let's pull up the scores, see where this one ranked. So on the channel, we got official scoring system here. There's a whole bunch of metrics behind the scenes that we just summarize in this capacity for these reviews, breaking things down into flavor, experience, and value. Ultimately, flavor is just how enjoyable it was each step of the way. Experience is more about the mouthfeel and the complexity. Value is just that value for the price paid. Man, 32 bucks for a barrel proof Jim Beam. Come on. That's a top score. Now, this one was interesting actually as I did the review and sat there with the scores and thought about them for a little bit. One of the reasons that the scoring system set up the way it is because I think there are a lot of really good but one noted whiskeys. So you have whiskeys that'll get a high flavor score, but then lack the complexity or lack the mouthfeel, but they're just pleasing throughout the experience as far as the flavor is concerned. And I try to find a way to balance that with some of the metrics and the way that it's set up. I think this is one of the first ones that really flipped that scale. So because it's so on the nose, came off as hot, lost some points there. Front palate really doesn't give you a whole lot. All of this is truly about the finish, and that's what really gave it most of its flavor points. But when it comes to the complexity and the mouthfeel and the length of the finish, I mean, it's giving you something good every step of the way on there. So we end up with something that's actually got a bigger experience score than a flavor score. I thought that was kind of interesting as we got into it. That gave it a total score of a 74, which is a very good pour overall. And in terms of would I recommend this? Yeah, I would. 10 out of 10. You better be trying some old granddad 114. That has to be somewhere on your bourbon journey. I feel like you need this in general so that you actually understand what you're paying for if you exceed $32, jumping into 50, jumping into 100. Are you really going to enjoy it more than this? You got to think long and hard about that. Do I plan to buy another? Yeah, I plan to buy another. Man, I mean, look at me. I got to buy another very soon here. This thing's almost done. I'm going to kill this thing within the next, 2-3 weeks, I bet. Let's see if this thing lasts till spring. I'll have it on the porch for a sunset pour to kill that good bottle of Old Grandad 114. So that's the review of the Old Grandad 114. Once again, I was talking a little crap about Booker's earlier. I think that needs to be a future blind too. Let's do some Bookers through the Old Grandad 114. Let's see if it comes in last place or not. If it doesn't come into last place and it beats some batches, ooh, that would be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? Maybe we'll do that experiment later. Well, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you later on the next whiskey review. Bye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again.